60 Minutes Rewind.
So how often do you come back here?
Oh, not often enough. I always enjoy getting up here and seeing this view along this beach and down here with all these launch pads.
That was your launch
my
pad?
old launch pad there for Apollo.
Must have been a lot of force on that rocket. What did it feel like?
Well, when you first get off the pad, you're still lifting a lot of fuel weight. So and acceleration is very low. But in the case of the Saturn rocket, the big Saturn rocket, it had a lot of shaking. It felt like a train on a bad railroad track and shaking in every direction. And it was loud, really loud.
Did you have butterflies?
Sure. When you got that much liquid oxygen and hydrogen and other explosive materials underneath you're always aware that there's a certain apprehension is merited.
And what about after the liftoff? I mean, did you had to think at some point, before or after, that something could go wrong up there and maybe you couldn't get back? You might be stranded on the moon?
Well, I suppose you think about that sort of thing long before the flight goes, in the months leading up. But once you're here and on the launch pad, ready to go, you put those thoughts behind you. Think positive all the time. Just try to be ready for everything that's going to happen.
And having been there, do you look at the moon differently than you did before?
Well, it's a little bit like if you look at a globe of the world in your home, and you see places on it. You see places you've been. After having been to the moon, you see places you've been, and you remember flying by them at closer range.
That July morning in 1969, when you came out and you gave that thumbs up, I mean, that was a very confident view you put on.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a sham, I admit. We were confident in the equipment and our own readiness to go, but you know, the reality is a lot of times you get up there and get in the cockpit and something goes wrong somewhere and you go back down. So when you actually lift off, it's really a big surprise.
So when you lift off on this thing, I mean, that must be, one, an incredible feeling of power underneath you. And what about the noise?
The noise is enormous. It's so loud that it's not just audible noise. You feel the vibration of the sound. And and not until you get up to about 1,000 feet altitude do you start to lose the reflection of the sound coming off the ground. At that point, it becomes manageable to hear people talking to you over the radio, but that's about the first.
But in the beginning, it must be hard for you to hear ground control.
Very difficult to hear anything over the radio in that noise environment. You know, there's an old saying in aviation that if it looks good, it flies good. And this has to be the exception to the rule because it flew very well, but it is probably the ugliest flying machine that was ever been designed.
And it looks so large from the outside, and I've always heard how little room there was inside.
Yeah, there's not very much room inside. It looks large, but a lot of that volume is occupied by systems and tanks.
Mm-hmm. In the end, it worked for you.